Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. On Today Explain series, we're talking all about miso, including what exactly is miso, the nutrition and history of miso, how is miso made, also how do you pick your own miso in a supermarket for your own signature dish. Check it out. Hi new friend, this is Erica right here. I'm a Taiwanese citizen, currently live in America. Cooking and traveling is my passion, so I'm here to share with you my favorite Asian recipes. On top of that, all my videos cover a little food knowledge and a history background of the dish, as well as a Chinese lesson at the end of the video. So if that interests you, please subscribe and keep watching. Miso soup is a dish that most of us will always order when we go to a Japanese restaurant. But do you really know what exactly is miso? Most of us probably only seen miso in a soup, but miso is actually a Japanese national seasoning that can be used in many different type of recipes. After I had done a lot of research for these videos, I was also surprised how much is there about miso that I did not know, even though I grew up eating Japanese miso cuisine all the time. There's a lot we need to cover in today's video. It might be a long one, so without further ado, let's get straight into it, shall we? Miso is a traditional Japanese seasoning that is produced by fermenting soybean with koji and salt. Koji is a type of fungus made by combining a cultivated mold with rice, beans, or barley. It is used to make fermented food and drink such as soy sauce, sake, and of course, miso. Generally, miso tastes salty, tangy, and savory on its own. It is typically smooth, has a similar texture to a less oily nut butter, but some variety can also be chunky. While you can taste miso on its own, it's not meant to be eaten that way. Miso can not only be put into soup, but it can also be a seasoning for roasting meat. It is also commonly used as a dipping sauce or salad dressing, marinating meat and fish, or even being baked in bread and cake. Japanese have a long history of eating miso. The first documented miso is found in the 8th century, even though it had a different name back then, but we know it's the exact same thing. In the late 16th century, miso has already become a very important military rations, and each region's general even regard their miso recipe as their military secret. And in the Edo period, which is around 17th to 19th century, miso have developed flavor that is unique to each region. Miso contains a lot of substance that is good for our health. They appears when the enzyme produced by the koji acts on the rice and soybeans. The enzyme breaks down soy protein into amino acid, which are essential nutrition for our body, and it also creates great umami flavor. The starch contained in rice and soybean are turned into sugar through an action called amylase, a digestive enzyme. Resource retain a lot of glucose, which is indispensable for humans' brain function. Miso is also rich in essential mineral, also the vitamin B, E, and K, folic acid. As a fermented food, miso provides the guts with beneficial bacteria that help our body to stay healthy, vibrant, and happy. Due to the research, a healthy gut is proved to be linked to our overall mental and physical wellness. So there's literally a saying in Japan, you don't need a doctor if you have miso. Overall, making miso is not the most complicated process, but since it's a fermented food, it does take a while. Miso is simply made by 4 ingredients, which is soybeans, water, salt, and koji fungus. Koji is a type of fungi with hyphus. It is widely used in Japanese and Chinese cuisine to make such as soy sauce, mirin, miso, and more. Koji can also use as a fermented seed for wine and vinegar. If you mix this with rice or wheat, it will turn into rice wine, rice vinegar, and sake. In the miso factory, they will soak the beans overnight and then either boil or steam it to soften it up and then mush it into a fine paste. After the paste is ready, it will be blended with the koji fungus. After the bean paste and koji are well mixed, they will add in the water and salt for flavoring. After all the ingredients are mixed up well together, they're gonna put it into a container and then press it down firmly. This process is very important for miso because it have to be fermented for a very long time, so pressing it down will prevent the miso to come in contact with the bacteria and air, and then they will tighten it up and then put it into the ferment center. Depending on the type of miso, it could be left in a container from months to years. But in general, the miso that you saw in the market are normally fermented around 9 months to 12 months. Miso tend to ferment the most in the hot and humid time of the year, such as the rainy season or the summer, and normally stop fermenting initially during the cold winter. In general, it is important for the miso to experience all the climate changes because the miso that have experienced this temperature change tend to taste incomparably better than the fast fermented miso. In Japan, almost all regions produce their own miso. But because of the technique, the ingredients, and the process length difference, there are hundreds of different miso you can find in the Japanese supermarket. If you ever want to make miso at home by yourself, you definitely have to learn how to differentiate a different type of miso. And there's mainly 3 different ways to categorizing them: the KOJI type, the different flavor, and the different colors. First, let's talk about the KOJI type. Like we mentioned earlier, KOJI is a type of fungus that is used to ferment miso. There are 3 different types of KOJI that is used in miso. There's rice KOJI, barley KOJI, and also bean KOJI. So the final products are also divided into rice miso, barley miso, and bean miso. Among all of them, the rice miso, which accounted for 80% of all miso, are the most commonly seen miso in the world. But of course, the 2 other types of miso have their own fans as well. Next is to differentiate the miso by their color. From the perspective of the color appearance, it is also divided into 3 categories: the white miso, the yellow miso, or also called as a light miso, and the red miso. The different color of miso is caused by the length of the fermentation time. The longer the time, the darker the color. And also in general, the darker the color, the stronger the flavor. But there's always exceptions. Last is probably the most important for a customer, the flavor. On the packaging, you can find the sweet and spicy type of miso. The former have the lighter and sweeter taste to it, and the latter have a stronger aroma and are normally more savory. The main reason that causes a different taste in this miso is the ratio of KOJI and salt in the miso. The sweet miso have more KOJI in it, and the spicy miso have more salt in it. And the interesting thing here is that the spicy miso is actually not spicy. They just use the Shin character to describe a stronger flavor. At the end of the day, there are just too many different types of miso on the market, so this is really hard to use this 3 type of differentiator to tell the exact flavor for the exact miso. So here are a few different region miso that I want to share with you today that will give you a little basic idea when you go purchase your own miso in the supermarket. So here we go. First is the Shinshu miso. Shinshu miso is a representative of the spicy yellow rice miso. And it is the most commonly seen miso in both Japan and around the world. Shinshu miso are a great choice for making miso soup because it has a really light bean taste and a strong savory flavor. And because of its refreshing smooth taste, it can also be used as a dipping sauce. Next is the Sendai miso. Sendai miso is a spicy red rice miso that's fermenting time is longer than the Shinshu miso. The flavor of Sendai miso is really strong and savory, so if you like a saltier version of miso soup, you can always add in the Sendai miso with other miso into your soup. Next is the Saikyo miso. Saikyo miso is a sweet white rice miso. This type of miso are mostly made in Kyoto and Hiroshima area. This type of miso are great to pair with seafood or even using as a fish marinated sauce. And since it's a sweet type of miso, you can also see it used in the cake and bread products. And the next one is the Kyushu-mugi miso. Kyushu-mugi miso is a famous type of sweet yellow barley miso. It is mostly seen in Kyushu and Shikoku area. The flavor is relatively sweet and you can see the barley chunks in it. It is mostly been used to bake in Japanese rice ball, onigiri. And it also has a perfect texture to use as a dipping sauce for cucumber, which is a famous bar snack in izakayas. If you still don't know what is izakayas, we talked about it before. I'll leave a link up here for you. Last but not least is our last miso we're introducing today, the hatcho miso. Hatcho miso is the most famous bean koji made miso. This is also the longest fermentation miso I've ever seen. It has to be fermented for over 3 years. And because of its fermentation time, the color of hatcho miso is really dark and it is definitely in the spicy miso category. Because of the long fermentation time and the strong flavor, hatcho miso's yearly output is not as much as other type of misos in the market. Hatcho miso's strong flavor is great to pair with meat, especially katsu, which is deep fried poultry such as pork chops or chicken cutlet. The famous miso pork cashew in Nagoya are also made with hatcho miso. Wow, if you're still with me until this point, I'm very proud of you. Now you already know all the basic knowledge that you need to know about miso. The last thing I'm going to share with you today is the pronunciation in Chinese of miso. And obviously our word of the day today, 味噌. 味噌. The second character have a very interesting pronunciation is 噌, and 味噌 is miso. By the way, these two characters are both used in Japanese and Chinese. In Japan, when you see these two characters, you pronounce miso, and in China or Taiwan, you see this character, it pronounced 味噌. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Let me know if you liked the information you got today by giving this video a thumbs up. It's only going to take you a second, but it means a lot to me. I make a video on YouTube every Thursday, so remember to hit that bell and you'll never miss out. Last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week. Bye!